right, ladies, welcome back. Welcome back. Hope you had a good break there. We are ready for round two. For session number 2, we're going to be talking about how to heal the image of the Republican Party. This is a big lift, a big heavy lift, and I can't do this alone. I'm going to bring in a reinforcement here in just a second. I'm going to introduce you to my friend Holly. We both have a lot to share with you guys about this today. Now, I want to open, before we bring Holly in, I just want to say a couple things. I love the values of the Republican Party, and you guys are going to get a deep, deep dive into them today. What I don't like sometimes are Republicans. Just like we were talking about in the last session, we love Christianity, we love Jesus Christ, but sometimes Christians can turn us off, right? Sometimes we have some Christians that behave badly. Well, it's the same way in the Republican Party. I have always been a Republican. I will always be a Republican. I am a proud Republican. So for my Republican friends who are watching and those who will watch on the replay, especially those in the RNC, okay, just saying, I'm not trying to throw my party under the bus today. I want you to understand the spirit in which we're going to approach this session, that it's for the purpose of taking a long look in the mirror and reflecting on what is great about our values and our party, and where do we need some spring cleaning? Where do we need some housekeeping? How do we heal some areas in our party that are glaringly obvious that need to be healed? Now, we need to understand a couple things. Our bad eggs in our party have they have an effect on some people that is quite repulsive. I have met people who turned out to vote for Trump this time, but would rather cut off their right arm than vote Republican in the future. That's a problem. Hear me, GOP, this is a problem. If we don't get honest about why we repel people, we better never think in any alternate universe that we're going to be okay next election cycle. And I will even go so far as to say that a lot of people have told me, and I can understand where they're coming from, that Trump won despite the Republican Party, not because of the Republican Party. We have a lot of puffed up Republicans out there going, yep, knew it all along. We knew Trump was going to get it all along. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, while he was still running and undergoing all the, persecution that he went through to get into to this office again, they were the ones helping to set the traps. Okay, so we need to just get honest about it today. And we need to also address the infighting that goes on in our party. Pretty destructive, pretty ugly. We're behaving badly in our party, and we're calling that out today. Just like as a Christian, we have an opportunity and a responsibility to help bring correction to other Christians who are behaving badly, right? We need to also do that in our party today. We're not trying to throw the party under the bus today, but we have a tendency in our party to eat our own, and that has to stop. And we also need a really good, solid understanding in this session on what does the Republican Party stand for? What are our values? We hear Biden and people like that throwing around phrases like, we're fighting for the soul of our nation. What is the soul of our nation? We know Christianity, but when it comes to the values, how can they look at the same law or the same value and get two completely different meanings out of it? We need to look at that. So we need a really, really good, solid microscope on our party today, and we've got some things to fix. All right, so I'm going to bring on my good friend Holly Edwards. Holly she lives in North Carolina, one of the biggest counties there, Cabarrus County, North Carolina. She actually oversaw. She was president of the school board there for many, many, many years. I'm talking about over all of the schools, and then she ran for the House of Representatives in North Carolina last election cycle. This Trump election cycle. The Republican Party did her pretty bad, did her pretty dirty. And then she turned around this year and ran for GOP chairman of Cabarrus County. And she's got some stories she's going to share. So let's welcome Holly into the show. Buckle up, because this one's going to be pretty epic. And I think you're going to enjoy it. Welcome to the show, Holly Edwards. Hey, Holly.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you, more importantly? You're in the swamp over there.
Oh, my goodness. That's a great analogy. And your words were awesome. That nailed it to perfection.
we're gonna get honest. We've got you for just a few minutes here. I know you're at a conference, but thanks for carving out some time to come and do this with me. Let's just share your experience. Tell us firsthand. I mean, I ran for State House of Representatives. I've got some stories I'm going to share later, but let's hear your story right now while we've got you.
Right. So pretty much, exactly as you stated, ran for office this year. I've been an elected official here for 12 years, was party chair or our Board of Education chairman for 5 years. So ran for a position this past year. And during the primary campaign, actually wound up running against my own party people more so than even the Democrat or, the opposing parties. And it's really disheartening to see your own party, as you stated, kind of come after your own. That's a great description, because that's pretty much what happens. And, I just said after that, we have got to do better. We have got to unify this party. When we are running primary candidates, party leadership, should stay neutral. That's a real problem, in a lot of areas. No matter how many bylaws, plan of organizations, how many rules come down, people still tend to do that, and it's very unfortunate. We are steering people away from the Republican Party. I made a statement one night at one of our debates that, our party here at Cabarrus County had grown about 2,800 registered Republicans within a 7-year time period. The unaffiliateds have grown 16,000.
16,000 unaffiliated. So people who won't affiliate with the Republican Party.
Right. So, I kind of equate it, and I think you and I've spoke about it. This is like a divorce, or when mom and dad are fighting in a house, and the kids are acting up at school or in other places, and people don't know what's going on with the kids, because these kids are usually really good kids. But when you drill down and you start finding out, it's really about what's happening at home, or within our own party. When mom and dad are fighting, people respond differently. They start taking sides. It's just unfortunate that we cannot get our party people to understand that in the primary, we have to stick together. We have to let the voters make the decisions, and let the party leadership stay out of it. And to understand that unifying means unifying.
Yeah. Give her a sec. I know she's coming to us from a conference, and I know her internet might be a little wobbly there.
It's terrible, Diane. I apologize. I'm up in
there. You are.
It's not good.
No worries. Yeah, you made you made some really good points. It is like that. It is the infighting. No matter who I talk to in the Republican Party, no matter what state they're in, no matter what county they're in, I hear the same broken record, that it's the infighting. And they can it's not just the fighting, but they can get pretty creative about how they will weed people off of ballots. Can you share a little bit about that?
Absolutely. We had a situation where our party leadership participated. Our vice chair actually ran campaigns, as a media person here, received thousands of dollars from candidates who wound up on a yellow sheet, which we call the cheat sheet around here, where other candidates who didn't use him, or the services, did not. So they looked like it was an official ballot, Republican ballot in the primary, that indicated that the party was endorsing those candidates. And of course, I was not one of them.
They just left you off. They just left you off that official looking ballot, even though it wasn't a real ballot.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. It appeared to be, because it stated primary, Cabarrus County Republican primary ballot, official, endorsed, those primary words were on there, even though it wasn't. And even though it was actually paid for by a candidate that was running, the voters don't always know. And they look to lean to the Republican Party, to offer people that they feel comfortable or want to support. So they knew that, and that's a really big deal, because it is a sheet that we use in the general election, which is very valid. The Republican Party is known for using that for years. So, there was an instrument or a tool used that we normally use in the general election, used in the primary, to really campaign against other Republican candidates.
Yeah. Yeah. Very creative. And then let's talk about what they did to you personally. Now, y'all, I want to say, like, I know there might be some cynics watching that might say, oh, she's probably just a disgruntled candidate that didn't get the support. No, let me tell you something. I have been, I basically, when I was doing my tour in 2022, Holly and we were together nonstop. I mean, I stayed with her in her home, and I saw firsthand how beloved she is in this community, both from elected leaders, from so many school board members and school board leaders. This woman loves this county. She is a builder there. She's got a construction company building residential homes. This woman is very embedded, very deeply committed to her community, and ran the school board, like, I mean, flawlessly. She is a woman of character, and she is someone that is just trying to do the right thing and follow the Republican values and live those out. So let's tell them what they did to you, Holly, with your ex-husband's girlfriend. Let's talk about that. Let's just
Yeah,
get the dirt out.
well, it's unfortunate. And, there are a lot of people that would say, oh, she's just got sour grapes, and
Yeah.
that's, that was stated, several times. I have been a big part of this community for years. When there are people that just don't like you or want to run people against you, that's okay. That's fair. That's called politics. But,
Yeah.
when your party actually participates,
Yeah.
that you've been a part of since 2000 and been a leader
Yeah.
in the community, it's a different feel. But
Yeah.
they recruited my ex-husband's girlfriend, my ex-husband of over 12 or 13 years ago. And she actually participated by sitting on the front row of debates and different functions and events and heckle. And of course, and people knew what was going on. And, it was just really unfortunate that they would go after not my voting history, my voting record. I was the board chair that got kids back in school when we were in COVID. Created a task force with my board that helped do that. I was one of those that helped create the instrument in Cabarrus County that's used throughout North Carolina for the CRT resolution. Did a lot of good things, but yet they still came after me and used personal, situations, to, I guess unnerve me, if you will, at functions. And personal is really that's hard to deal with a lot.
Yeah. And this was not someone, this girlfriend was not someone that had ever probably been in a Republican room before. She had voted Democrat consistently her adult life, from what I understand.
Absolutely. Up until the last several years. I know in 2016 she pulled the Democrat ballot, and always prior before that.
Yeah.
Not sure exactly what year she changed, but absolutely had always, voted Democrat prior to that, and never had participated. I mean, I've been a part of this Republican Party for 25 years, and
Yeah.
never had she participated prior. Right.
Until magically Holly's on the ballot and all of a sudden she's active.
Yes, but maybe that's what we should do to get more people active. Maybe that's a different type of strategy we haven't figured out yet.
Well, that's the thing about most of us who are doing this from a right heart, is that we try to take the high road. Even now, even no matter, and I was talking to Holly through this whole process, of what they were putting her through. And the entire time she took the high road. She stayed gracious. She stayed humble. She did not retaliate. You and Lee both, your running mate, y'all really demonstrated a lot of class. And that counts in heaven. No matter what happens on the ballot, God watched that, and God will honor you for that. And I love that even now, after the fact, you're still taking the high road. I honor you for that. I really do. Holly, let's also quickly, let's give them a quick idea of where the Republican dollars go, like the tactics for getting out the vote right now. What I remember on my campaign and what I see, and I've door knocked for other campaigns and watching yours, isn't the kind of the way that the budget or the fundraising that they bring in, the way that it's kind of distributed is, mailers. They send mailers out to the community. We have door knocking apps that are provided by the RNC. So some of their fundraising comes to the local level and gives us those door knock. Basically, it's an app that tells us where the Republicans live, and we door knock those doors. The big galas, I call them the pep rallies, putting on the big statesman's dinners, the Reagan Day dinners, and a lot of that stuff that builds some fundraising so that then they can supposedly put it behind candidates on the campaign trail. the way that all that money breaks down, mostly TV ads, a lot of it goes to TV ads where the political consultants line their pocket with 10% of that. I love how that works. But of all the ways, and if there's another way that you can think of that the money is spent, how many of those ways do you think are actually effective in getting out the vote? Because what I'm seeing now is people hate the robocalls, especially women, hate them. They don't respond to doomsday text messaging that goes out. They're scared to open the door for the door knockers. The mailers, they go right in the trash. I mean, some of them, a few of them might get through, but of all those tactics, and like I said, if there's one I've forgotten, please correct me, but how much of that works?
So, there's lots of statistics out there, and I'm sure they're doing a lot of it now to, look at 2024. And you're right, all of those have issues. It's not the world we used to live in. And, things are different. It's scary. Even I, had an issue about door knocking because you never know, women sit in a different place than men, whether you're answering that phone or you're, opening that door or you're waiting for that door to be opened. I feel like we need to look at a new age of way of getting the word out and campaigning. Amen. Because it is very different. I don't think a lot of the door knocking and some of the mailers, some of those, all of us are looking at those because we just don't think those are valid as much as they used to be because technology has really taken over, and I really think we need to take a hard look at it, especially with the next election coming up.
Yeah. Which is what we're going to do heavily today in this session. We're going to address it head on. I know we just had you for a couple of minutes, so I don't want to keep you too long, but the ladies who are watching, what do you think would be important for them to know about the Republican Party? Anything that we can, any wisdom we can glean from you that would be important for them to hear?
I think the most important part is to do what we say, and that's to pull this party together and to unify and to stop diversifying within our own. If when you're doing something that's not right. Kids know when they're not doing something right. They really don't need mom and dad to tell them. They usually know, but mom and dad is there, to reinforce the rules. We don't have a lot of that right now. We don't have a lot of our states enforcing the rules to the locals or the federal and enforcing the rules to the states. There's not a lot of that. It's allowed to happen. And that just calls for a really huge, horrible series of events. So I just really feel like we all have to pull together and push for us truly supporting our Republican people and our Republican candidates and our Republican platforms. We're not normally fighting about our platform and our conservative values. We're fighting about people we just don't like within our own party. It's personal. Somebody you don't quite agree with. So it's not about, our platform, our values. That's different. We've got to come back together and understand that the fight, if it's about, the statements being made, well, I'm more conservative than you, or you're less conservative than I am, and calling our people rhinos, we've got to understand that we don't always do support and do things the same way, but it doesn't change where we stand with our Republican platform.
Yeah, that's right. It's the policies, not the personality, that I always go back to. And when we look at the amount of people that actually turn out for primaries or even for elections, we don't have near enough people turning out. We got a lot of apathy in our party. We're going to address that heavily today too. But your insight and your experience, I think, was a great testimony today. Thanks for carving out time out of your conference there to jump on for a few minutes. I love you. I'm always in your corner, and I'm so proud of you.
Thank you very much. And the last thing I want to say is women have to stick together. We have to make sure that we are pushing our people and our party to do the right thing and to stay high. When those things happen, and you're going to have the troublemakers, the bullies, but we've got to stay high. And that's what I chose to do. And, I've come out even stronger. We're going to be doing some other things with this Republican Party in the next couple of years and, supporting candidates and doing the things that we need to do to keep our conservatives in there and to get those unaffiliated involved so that they, that they understand that being a Republican is a good thing, that they're usually, the statistics show that they normally 90% of the time vote Republican or conservative. So, not wanting to be affiliated with a party is a different issue, and we have got to absolutely welcome those people and get them involved.
Amen. Well said, my friend. All right, have a great rest of your weekend. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Enjoy
right.
your day
Bye-bye.
too. Bye.
Okay. The stories that you're going to hear today, you just heard Holly's. I want to share mine with you real quick. I only want to share it because I think it's important to set up what we're going to do about it. Okay. So when I ran for State House of Representatives in 2020, I had never been in politics before. A lot of you may know my story. I had a brother that served in the Marines that we lost just before Christmas to PTSD and also a brain injury from Afghanistan. It was very, very sad time for our family. When I was going through the healing process of that, God started tugging on my heart for public service. I really wanted to help veterans. That's all I really cared about, was going and helping veterans with some ideas that I had that I felt like could be really impactful. And so I stepped up to run on trembling knees. It took me almost a year to obey the call that I knew God was placing on my heart. I worked with a life coach that helped. And her name was Grace, by the way, beautiful woman, Grace, who lives in Italy. But she and I were working through the decision for almost a year, like I said, and I finally got my confidence and my clarity and all of that I needed to run to pull my papers. The night before I pulled my papers, y'all, I was so sick, like up and down all night long, sick to my stomach. Like I just was so nervous about running for office. And the next morning I got on the phone with her and she's like, Diane, you know, this is what God's calling you to do. What is your problem? And I said, I know. I just feel like I'm going into the lion's den, Grace. And she literally like busted out laughing. And she's like, oh, you're going into the lion's den. And then she said the thing that changed everything for me. She said, how did that lion's den work out for Daniel? And that's when I ladied up. That's when I said, you're right. You're right. You're absolutely right. If God's calling me to it, he's going to pull me through it. So I pulled my papers and ran for State House of Representatives right as COVID was hitting. So I was on the Trump down ticket. COVID's hitting. The world's freaking out. And I'm running for office for the first time. I don't know what I'm doing, right? Well, just before I started campaigning, I get a call. At that point, I was going to run for state Senate. And I ended up having to change to House of Representatives. And here's why. Here's where it gets ugly with the party. Our state chairman here, I won't say his name, Scott Golden. But anyway, he had someone from his office call me. And they said, Diane, you're going to need to change seats. We're not going to let you run for the Senate race. But you can run for the House race because it's unopposed. In other words, there's not another Republican that's signing up to run against the Democrats. So we'll back you for that race, but we're not going to get behind you for the Senate race, because I would have been primarying, which basically means there's one race where the two Republicans kind of head off, square off. And then whoever wins that then faces off in the general election against the Democrat. They didn't want me to oppose the current sitting senator in that seat. Because they didn't want me to split the vote. They wanted him to stay in the seat. I didn't think he was going to run because he had federal and state criminal charges that were just brought against him. I didn't think he'd have the nerve to run, but he did. And the party was going to back him. And basically what they said is, if you don't switch seats, we will not bona fide you for the Senate seat, which basically what that means is we're not going to let you run on the Republican ticket. And I had about 5 minutes to make the decision because I already had all of my signatures that you have to collect so many signatures in your community to run for Senate. I already had all of them pulled, all of them collected. And this was the evening, the day before I had to pull papers, that like the deadline when the office was closing for me to meet the deadline to put myself on the ballot. It took me weeks to get those signatures. And now I have one night to completely start over for the representative seat. Well, them being so helpful, they pulled together. There was a great friend who's become a friend, this great woman, Karen, who actually lined up people in the community for me to get all my signatures that night. She had people waiting in their driveways and was texting me, go to this address next, go to this address next. And we got all the signatures, in one night, making it possible then for me to go and pull my papers for the representative seat. But that's the dirty pool that goes on for new candidates. If they don't, the party doesn't really know you. Hear all the time, you'll hear them say, we need citizens to stand up and run. We need to recruit people to run, right? And then you go do it and your own party comes against you like that. So I pull my papers, I get on the ballot, and now I'm like, okay, well, can anybody like help me out here? Like, what do I do? Trying to figure it out, right? Trying to figure out how to campaign. I can't campaign during COVID because everything's shut down. You can't get out and do what you normally could do. You can't hold fundraisers, things like that. So it was pretty isolating. And basically the party, because they didn't know me and because I didn't have relationships with big donors, they pretty much just let me figure it out on my own. Not a whole lot of help at all. Not any at all, especially before the primary. The primaries are usually in August here in Tennessee. Now, once you get through the primary, then between August and election day, they'll usually come beside you then. And a lot of them did. But up until the primary, I was on my own. And it was pretty, I felt very angry about that at the time. I felt very abandoned by the party. And so I just started figuring it out. I'm not one to play the victim. I'm like, okay, if I'm on my own, I'm on my own with God, and he'll give me the ideas. And he did. And I got resourceful on how to campaign. But every time I would see Scott Golden around town, I'm going to get in so much trouble for saying his name, but it's okay. This is just the truth. I'm just being truthful with you guys. Every time I would see him around town, he would literally say to me, Diane, how much money have you raised? How much money have you raised? It's all, the one with the most money wins. He would literally say that to me every time I saw him. I just remember thinking, wow, how shallow of is that to think, to have that mentality. And that's when I started to see that both parties, the Republican Party and the Democrat Party, they are money-making machines. They are operations for fundraising. It is all about the money. Now, we saw, if you look at the current sitting president, Donald Trump, we saw the opposition. They raised what I think it was $1 billion for Kamala Harris, $1 billion. Now, Trump raised a lot of money, but he didn't raise $1 billion. So the one with the most money does not win. You know what wins elections? The turnout of the people. People being so motivated. What did he say? Too big to rig? People turning out in droves to the polls. That's what wins elections. That money that Holly and I were just talking about earlier, where a lot of the money goes, it pads a lot of pockets when they do these fundraising, these doomsday text messages, all this stuff. Leah, I'm going to bring you in for just a second because I want to talk to you about this. I hope she's there. I don't know if Leah's still with us. Maybe she'll jump back on here in a second. But she and I talk about this a lot. I'll watch for her. But it is a money-making operation in the sense that, there she is. Hey, Leah, let's talk about this together. Because we talk about the TV ads, how all this money gets trickled down, the doomsday text message. I know you have strong opinions on this too. So I'm going to let you share your heart on that. What do you think about all that stuff?
Well, I've been working in the private sector for the last 18 years, advising companies on how to win customers, how to win investments. And it's like all the same, the same things, the same issues, the emails, the commercials, all those things that you pay ad agencies thousands and millions of dollars to do for you. At the end of the day, it's always going to be grassroots. That's how every sector of society. Like if you want to get a job, everyone knows the only way to get a job is by networking. And that's hard because sending your application in, there's like 10% chance you're going to get a job because you sent it into some application pool, right?
Yeah.
But there's a maybe 85% chance if you know someone who works there that you're going to get an interview. Why is that any different when we campaign? And, I like to see what we are talking about is doing, like doging the Republican Party, right? Like a major audit here. And like I said, we're not trying to throw anyone under the bus. We all are on the same page. We do not want the country to go backwards, like where we just came from. Right. So we cannot afford to keep doing the same old, the same time, second time around. it's really foolish to, what is it, that phrase, like, I don't know.
The insanity. Yeah, that's doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Yeah,
exactly. So it's not rocket science, you know. Even Elon, who is a rocket scientist, right? He's figured some things out, right? It's not rocket science to pull the curtain back and say, okay, you know, yes, we have had our chariot ride through the streets, we won the election, but everyone can look at how Trump ran the campaign, and it wasn't the doomsday emails. It was going to McDonald's. It was going on the podcasts where people are talking, like listening, who are, you know, regular everyday people. It's the rallies, going to talk to everybody in the
garbage truck.
Yeah, that's what won the election, not the old timey stuff that doesn't work anyway. You know, like people don't make money by being traveling salesmen, knocking on doors and selling typewriters. You know, like that was pre-internet, right? So anyway, I have very strong opinions as well, and I hate seeing money being wasted on things that don't work. Like, you wouldn't do that in the business world. Why would you do that in the political world? You know, it's just anyway. So it has to happen. We have to fix this, and we have to fix it right now, today, not next month, not next year, not 6 months before the election. That's too late. It's too late. So we got to get our, you know what, together. I'm not going to cuss, but I want to, but I would never cuss on the show. But anyway, fires me up. So there's my 2 cents.
Well, let's talk about how we're going to fix it, because this is the download that God has given me that I think is so glaringly obvious. I don't know why nobody's talking about it but us. That's okay though. God, this is like, I feel like this is a Gideon moment for somebody who knew nothing about politics in 2019. Now 5-6 years later, he's put me in this seat, which is a privilege to share and download a lot to all of you what he has shown me. This is what I've been in my studio and in my office working on and packaging and developing, like eat, sleeping, breathing, drinking this for the last 4 years. So let's roll it out. Between this session and next session, you're going to get absolute tools on how to fix it. So what I want to do to lay the groundwork before we go into the next session is I want us to get clarity around what is the Republican Party? What do we stand for? And then next session, we're going to break down now how we can be a part of the solution. Every woman who's watching this today. And you are, let me tell you, you're not a part of the solution. Like, you are the solution to this problem. You are the solution. You sitting there right now, looking at me in your camera, you are the solution. Y'all saw that movie, It's a Wonderful Life. We all love that movie around the holidays. George Bailey, like, he, you know, God grants his wish for him to have never been born, right? And then his guardian angel comes and shows him all the lives that he impacted in his small little town that he had no idea. One conversation at a time, one powerful woman out there of God at a time. You are the George Bailey. You have massive impact. And us doing this at scale, it is the solution for our country. The solution. Okay, let's get into what we stand for as a party. So we need a breakdown of this. All right. I'm going to show you something that's so, like, it was a brilliant moment for me. Like, when I discovered this, I happened upon this. I literally, I know God brought it across my path, but when I found this, I was like, oh my gosh, like, this simplifies everything. Most of us as women don't want to go out and take a civics course. We don't have time to go get a political science degree, right? We sort of kind of know what the Constitution says, but not really. We kind of know what the Republican Party stands for, sort of, kind of, but the Democrats make good arguments. So how do we discern? Like, how do we get our bearings when they say, what is the soul of America? I'm about to show you. I heard Marsha Blackburn on an interview one day saying, well, you know, as Republicans, we believe in the rule of law. And I thought, I've never heard that term before. Where did she get that? It like perked my ears up. And then on my campaign trail, somebody asked me, well, they said, well, Diane, are you a fiscal conservative? And I went, like, what does that mean? Like, I'd been studying like crazy, but I had not heard these terms. So I went digging for them. And that's when I discovered this. So let me show you this. It's just brilliant. Okay. This is the 7 conservative values that our Republican Party, really our country, is built on. I'm not going to go through and read these all verbatim. If you sign up on my website at ladyupamerica.com, if you sign up in the upper right corner of our website, if you join our e-list, we give you a download of this for free. You get a PDF, but let me just hit the highlights of this. This is the soul of our nation. This simplifies our Constitution, all of our Republican values, simplifies it into 7, what I call the load-bearing walls of our country. They are human dignity, limited government, fiscal responsibility, rule of law, and peace through strength. Now, I don't care what breaking news cycle hits us tonight. I don't care what's on Hannity tonight. I don't care what you read on Twitter, or on X now, I guess it is. Whatever you come across that throws you off balance a little bit and hits you, it can be immediately filtered through one of these 7 values, and you can immediately discern the truth from the lie. Immediately. So let me kind of give you the sort of the takeaways from this. Under limited government, this is what I was talking about on the first session, that the bigger government gets, the less free we are. So it's really important for us to limit government. This is why Doge is so important. This is why everything Trump's doing to try to reduce, try to shrink, just cut all that fat out of the government. That's what they're trying to do, is return us to our founding value on unlimited government. Our founding fathers were very, very clear. The bigger the government gets, it's like a monster. It will devour its people. So that's the first one. So anytime we start to see another ABC agency popping up, or we start to see all these arguments about cutting these agencies back, we can see here it's rooted in the soul of our nation. What they're doing is absolutely on point. Human dignity, this one is huge. So when we're talking about things like the border crisis, talking about abortion, anything like that, this value says that all men are created equal and in the image of God, and that every human being has dignity and value, and every person should be measured only by the content of their character. It goes on, but basically this is our whole argument around the value of human life. So we're talking about abortion. It is diabolically opposed, the pro-choice movement, which, by the way, always seems to be leading them toward abortion, not really the choice of having their child. It's always kind of a one-way ticket to abortion, this pro-choice movement. But anyway, we're looking at that. It's diabolically opposed to this value, this founding value in our country, human dignity. So important. Rule of law. And we could talk, like when it comes to the border crisis, things like that. All of these things can be rooted. If you go and you really look at this value, it's on meritocracy, and it's on becoming, assimilating into our country, things like that, becoming an American. That's so important. It's about, us reaching our God-given potential, but doing things the right way, all of that. So the rule of law is the next one that I want to talk about. Very, very important. It's easy for us to get our bearings when we're looking at what Tom Homan's doing with these illegal migrants, and a lot of them very dangerous, criminal illegal migrants. He is absolutely 100% within his boundary to enforce this rule of law. The rule of law, the takeaway on this is basically what's good for the goose should be good for the gander. You don't make exceptions based on some political narrative or agenda that you're trying to push. They brought all that, last administration opened up the floodgates to our country and brought in all of those people, knowing there would be some, collateral damage. There would be some people who would be unaffected, or there would be some people that would be affected negatively, but they were willing to gamble that, willing to roll those dice, because they thought that all those people would vote Democrat. That was part of their agenda to not let Trump back in the seat. And he is 100% justified in deporting these people under the rule of law. Individual freedom, basically it's a self-evident truth that all of us are created equal. All of this DEI stuff, this diversity, equity, and inclusion, equality is a very different thing than equity. So again, when they're pushing this DEI and the CRT and all of this stuff, it is, again, counter to individual freedom. Government, in other words, government does not give us our rights, and government does not get to divvy out rights to different identity groups. Like, identity politics is never a part of individual freedom. We have value because God created us. We have the right to pursue our lives, to pursue freedom, to pursue the things that God designed us to become because of the inalienable rights that we inherited from God, our creator. And government's job is never to grant us our rights. It's only to secure the rights that God has already given us. Okay, so I'm telling you, any news cycle that comes up, you get this piece of paper, you read these definitions, and you will immediately be able to get your bearings. Fiscal responsibility, we'll talk about that one next. Basically, that means that the government doesn't produce anything. They do not have any goods and services that they produce. We give them money to run the country. Their job is to be good stewards of that money. There's no such thing as government funded anything. It's we are funding it. Taxpayers are funding it. And I want to tell you, with all this Doge waste that they're finding, doesn't it infuriate you? The waste and how they've spent our money on these frivolous and ridiculous and insane things this pork that they've been, and it's all, again, it's all so obvious. It's the enemy's attack on creation. It's the enemy's attack on God's design for our lives and for our freedom and for our children and all of that. If you look at all of this LGBTQ stuff, all this trans stuff, all of it is designed, and at the global level, it's all designed to undermine God's design for us. It's so obvious. So fiscal responsibility, really important. Free markets. Okay, we got the tariff issue that we're talking about right now. Everybody's freaking out about the tariffs. Did you know that our country once had no income tax at all? Okay, think about this, ladies. We actually separated ourselves. Like, the Revolutionary War was kicked off by the Boston Tea Party because they were taxing the tea that they were importing to us, exporting, and we were importing. A tax on tea set off the Revolutionary War. We are taxed coming and going and sideways and backward and forward. We are taxed like crazy these days. And the free market, like what Trump's trying to do with these tariffs, is get us back to some sanity when it comes around taxes, getting rid of a lot of the regulation, a lot of the taxes, all this stuff, and making things more, I'll just say, sane. Like, our country is off the rails with this whole free market thing. And the tariffs bring that back into line and into alignment. It may be temporarily uncomfortable, but anytime, think about when you spring clean your house, right? You got to get some stuff out. You got to clean out some dust bunnies. You got to pull things away from the wall. You got to get up under the bed, right? It looks like a mess for a minute, but then when you put it all back in, it's beautiful. And that's what's going on with the tariffs right now. That's a very elementary way to put it, but that's what's going on. He's trying to return us to free markets where we can thrive, where we have fair competition, where America is actually producing things again. So I know I'm going to get off on that. Sorry. And then our last one is peace through strength. Again, look at the border. Look at the world wars that are going on. How do you stop a bully on the schoolyard? You don't negotiate with them. The only thing that stops a bully is a force greater than itself. The only thing that drives back evil is a force greater than itself. That would be Jesus Christ. That pushes evil back. It's deterrence. It's you better not. It's not Biden getting on there and going, don't. No, it's real. Like, we can back it up, and we will. That's how you achieve peace through strength. And we're already seeing it. He's not even in the office 6 months, and we're already seeing it. So this is the soul of our nation, ladies. Next time you wonder, if you're trying to, you get a news cycle that hits you and you're not quite sure what to make of it, and you hear the left making great arguments, right? They're making wonderful, compassionate, compelling arguments for it. You can immediately get your bearings with this, and you won't fall for the lie. Like, it won't land on you. You now have a tool on how to get your center, to get your true north in that conversation. All right, we are out of time for this session. I'm going to roll a little bit of what I had planned to do with you guys into the next session. We're going to take a quick 15-minute break. I'm trying to stay on time. It's a little hard for me to do because I get so passionate. But we're going to take a quick 15-minute break, and then I will be back. And next session is where all the gold is. That's where you're going to find out your part. And I mean, you're going to walk away going, wow, I wish I would have known this sooner. going to be a part. You're going to be the solution, not a part of the solution, but the solution. All right. I love you, ladies. I'm so glad you're here. We'll see you back in about 15 minutes. Okay.